Historical lessons on leadership. What can King Josiah teach us about leading in our modern time? Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Gary, and thank you so much for going on this learning journey with us. I would appreciate it so much if you would share this information and this content on your social platform so that others can be made aware of the learning opportunity that we make available Monday through Friday. Well, we're looking at King Josiah, and in 2 Kings chapter 23, verses 1 through 20, it gives us an account of Josiah's action against an apostate nation. Reflect on the details of his action and just let it sink in that we're talking about a cleansing and purging of priests, men of God, house of worship, and statues and icons and altars all being torn down. So just listen to this. I'm going to give you a highlight. Verse 4, brought out of the temple the vessels made for Baal and Asherah and burned them. Asherah was the goddess of licentiousness. Verse 5, he deposed, meaning he brought their work to an abrupt, hard stop. The priests that burned incense to Baal, the sun, the moon, and the constellations, and the heavenly hosts. The creation was worshipped more than the Creator in the house of God. Verse 6, burned the objects of worship to Asherah. Verse 7, broke down the houses of the male prostitutes from the house of God. Verse 8, brought out all the priests from Judah, Geba, and Beersheba, breaking down the high places by the gate of Joshua. Verse 10, Josiah decimates Topheth, the place where worshippers of Molech burned their children as sacrifices. Now, just as a side note, Manasseh, King Josiah's grandfather, sacrificed one of his children on this altar during his 50-year reign. Verse 11, removed horses and chariots of the kings of Judah and burned the chariots. These were horses and chariots that were used in parading and pomp and circumstance of false gods and false worship. Verse 13, notice the various locations that were committing abominations unto God. Josiah came in like a wrecking ball in all of these places and destroyed them all. Verse 16, Josiah emptied the tombs of dead worshippers to false gods and burned them on Jeroboam's altar that was prophesied 300 years earlier. Now think about that. You'd have to go back to the previous shortcast to get the update and the details on that prophetic word by an unnamed prophet as Jeroboam was about to have a celebration of a new altar in Bethel. In fact, you just go and read verse 15 in our text that we're looking at now. Verses 19 to 20. All that Josiah did in other cities, he did in Samaria, tore down the shrine, sacrificed the priest, burning human bones on the altar of false worship. And boy, do we have to stop and catch our breath. What a mess. Well, what kind of nation had Israel become? Now keep in mind, we're focusing in on the issues that King Josiah inherited. And and his actions demonstrates for us leadership insights and principles for our modern time. Well, the nation of Israel, it was a civilization in metamorphosis, moving from monotheism, one God, to neo-paganism, worship of many gods. A civilization of gods and idols. I mean, they were everywhere in the house of God, called prostitutes. Israel had emptied itself of the manifest presence of God and redirected their worship into idols. It was a corrupted civilization, worshipped a gender-bending goddess of Ishtar, gender mutilation and child sacrifice going on way, way back in Old Testament history. They had decontextualized and deconstructed sexuality and life itself. A civilization that was against the truth and reality. They left the worship of the one God. As a civilization that was against nature. They decontextualized life and gender to accommodate their perversions. It was a civilization that was against life itself. So what a mess Israel is finding themselves in at this time period in history. To continue our thoughts here, they became a civilization against God. They departed from the ways of God, and this spiritual and cultural war turned against them. It was a civilization against the good. They called evil good, and good was called evil. They became apostate, denouncing the principal belief, God alone and sola scriptura, Scripture alone. Well, those who would dare to resist these new values and practices within the land, these new ideologies and pseudo-religions, those who would not comply or join in their celebration would become increasingly ostracized. So 10 things will occur when you're not joining in the new configuration of life and definition of it. Well, they were marginalized in the name of inclusivity, even back then. Excluded in the name of self-expression and would be silenced. Condemned in the name of acceptance. Vilified, railed against, and hated in the name of love. Enemies of the state and culture because of goodness and righteousness. Deplatformed, demonetized, blacklisted, denied admission, expelled and boycotted. Compelled to go through sensitivity training and corrective education way back then. Forced publicly to confess their sins against the flow of the culture. Prosecuted, persecuted, canceled, and eliminated. Well, you get the idea that Israel was in trouble. What a troublesome time period in history for Israel, God's people. And as you look at this and you look at Josiah and what he did, there's great insights that can come out of this in terms of what it will take for such a difficult hour to be a leader. It's not impossible, but it's going to require strength and fortitude like you've never seen. Well, thank you so much for making it to this point on this journey, and I do appreciate you giving me some of your time. It is very much appreciated. Please share this content on your social platforms so that others will know about this learning opportunity. Until we can meet again, we bid you Godspeed. Bye for now.